Hello, students, and a very warm welcome. Today, we're going to dive into a truly pivotal moment in history, the French Revolution and how it gave birth to the modern idea of a nation. This one event lit a fire that would completely change the map of Europe. It's really where the story of nationalism as we know it begins. So, let's get started. To understand this story properly, we're going to journey through 6 key stages. First, we'll quickly revise what we mean by a nation. Then, we'll look at what France was like before the Revolution and how a brand new French identity was created. We'll also look at the very complex role of Napoleon, see how the rest of Europe reacted to these new explosive ideas. And finally, we'll try to understand the lasting legacy of it all. This path will help us connect all the dots one by one. All right, so let's begin with the fundamentals. Before we can really appreciate the impact of the French Revolution, we need to be absolutely clear on our main terms. So let's ask ourselves, what exactly do we mean when we use words like nation and nationalism? Okay, let's look at this definition closely. Nationalism isn't just about sharing a piece of land or a border. No, it's a very powerful feeling, a sense of belonging to a collective group. See, before this time, a person's loyalty was to their king or to a local lord. Nationalism shifted that loyalty to the nation itself, a whole community built on a shared history and common struggles. Now, before the Revolution, France was governed by what we call absolutist rule. Simply put, this means the king had absolute or total power. Just imagine a ruler with no parliament, no constitution, no laws to limit their decisions. That is exactly what it was like. This system was highly centralized and often quite repressive. Please remember that term, absolutist. So, with this picture of an all-powerful king in your mind, let's now turn to how this entire system was completely shattered. We are about to witness a radical shift in power, from the hands of one single monarch into the hands of millions of ordinary people. The year 1789. This marks a major turning point. For centuries, the idea that a king held all the power was just accepted. But the French Revolution completely shattered this belief. It proclaimed a radical new idea, that power does not belong to a king, it belongs to the people, the citizens. This was the exact moment that nationalism really stepped onto the world stage. This brings us to a key concept, sovereignty. It's a very important word. Think of it like this. Who is the ultimate boss? Before, the king was the boss of France. Now, the revolutionaries declared that the French citizens were the new boss. This transfer of ultimate power, or sovereignty, meant that the people themselves would now form the nation and, more importantly, shape its destiny. Now, it's one thing to have an idea, but how do you actually make millions of people feel like they are part of one single nation? How did the revolutionaries take this abstract idea of a nation and make it a reality for ordinary people? Let's find out. The revolutionaries introduced 2 very important new concepts: la patrie, which means the fatherland, and le citoyen, the citizen. Before, people were just subjects of a king. Now, they were citizens of a nation. Let's think of it like your school. You are not just attending a building, right? You are all members of a school community with equal rights and a shared identity. That is exactly the kind of feeling they wanted to create for all of France. And to build this feeling, they used powerful new symbols that people could see and touch. As you can see on the slide, the old royal flag was replaced by the new tricolor, which represented the people. They created new national anthems that everyone could sing together. They took oaths of loyalty, not to a king, but to the nation. And they honored revolutionaries who had died as martyrs for the cause. Each of these things was designed to create a powerful, shared, emotional bond among the people. So, they had the emotional connection, the feeling of unity. But what about the practical side of things? How do you make a large country with all its different regions and customs actually function as one single unified nation? They achieved this through some very practical reforms. For example, they created a centralized administrative system. This means one set of rules for everybody. Just imagine a country where the laws in one city are different from the next. That's how it was before. By creating uniform laws, they made sure every citizen was treated equally. They also got rid of internal taxes between regions. This made it much easier for people to trade and feel like part of a single economy. These practical steps were absolutely crucial for breaking down old barriers and truly uniting France. Now, just as these new ideas were taking root in France, a very powerful figure emerged who would carry them all across Europe, Napoleon Bonaparte. His role in this story is fascinatingly complex because he was both a product of the revolution and, in some ways, its destroyer. Let's explore how. And here we see the great paradox of Napoleon. On one hand, he actually destroyed democracy in France. He crowned himself emperor and acted just like the monarchs the revolution had overthrown. But, on the other hand, he also became a carrier of revolutionary ideas. As his armies marched across Europe, they brought with them modern laws and administrative systems that completely swept away the old feudal order. Okay, now please pay close attention to this, as it is very, very important for your exams. The Civil Code of 1804, which is also known as the Napoleonic Code. This set of laws was truly revolutionary. For an ordinary person, it meant that your rights no longer depended on who your parents were. It established equality before the law for everyone. It secured the right to own property, and it abolished the old feudal system that had tied peasants to the land for centuries. In short, it made society more fair, more rational, and much more efficient. So Napoleon's armies are marching all across Europe, and they're bringing with them this new code and these new ideas. How did the people in places like Holland, Switzerland, and Italy react to their arrival? Were the French seen as liberators or as new conquerors? At first, many people welcomed the French armies as liberators who would bring freedom and equality. But this initial excitement, it faded very quickly. If you look closely at this painting, you can see the French soldiers are not being welcomed at all. They are shown as oppressors, seizing goods from the local people. This image perfectly captures how the dream of liberty soon turned into the harsh reality of foreign occupation and hostility. So you see, the reaction was deeply mixed. On one hand, there were some clear benefits, like uniform laws and easier trade, which many merchants and businessmen really appreciated. But on the other, heavier side, came the burdens: increased taxes, censorship, and worst of all, being forced to join Napoleon's army. People soon realized they had just traded their old rulers for new ones, and in the process, they had lost their political freedom. And finally, let's just step back a little bit and consider the long-term impact of this entire turbulent period. After the revolution, all the wars, the rise and fall of Napoleon, what was the lasting legacy of these ideas on the concept of the nation across Europe? So, what is our main takeaway from all of this? The most important thing to remember is that the French Revolution was the spark that lit the flame of nationalism across Europe. The ideas that just exploded out of France became a blueprint, a model. For the next 100 years, whenever people fought for their own independent nation-states, they looked to the French model for inspiration. And this image here brilliantly illustrates that dream. This is a very famous print by Frederick Soriot from 1848. It shows peoples from all over the world, each with their own flag, marching past the Statue of Liberty towards a future of democratic republics. This utopian vision of a world made up of free and independent nations, this is the ultimate legacy of the French Revolution. And that leaves us with a final question to think about. The ideas we've discussed today, citizenship, liberty, the nation belonging to its people, all of these were radical concepts born during the French Revolution. How do you see these 200-year-old ideas shaping your own country and our world, even today? It's something we're thinking about. Thank you for joining this explainer.